Yeah, for some reason, the intro keeps getting me swinging. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world right now. Thank you for tuning in to Social Confoes. I am your co host, Jean-Luc. Next to me is co host Diego. Diego, how are you today?
I'm doing good aside from these technical issues, but you know how it is. We fix it, we patch it up, and keep on going. And hopefully next week everything will be perfectly fine again. But we're back, yeah. How has your day been? You said you had a weird day just as we went on.
Yeah, well, I think the cool part of the day is I won NBA Top Shot pack on Twitter today. I don't know which pack it is yet, but I guess we'll do an opening video and probably I'm gonna give away one of the moments in the pack as well. So that might be a cool thing to do. I mean,
Awesome.
it's always nice to give away NFTs, and I think we'll dive a little bit into that maybe towards the end
Yeah,
of our
speaking of
conversation today.
NFTs, I think we'll definitely dive into it based on who we have today. And let's not just beat around the bush and go straight into it. Today we have Mr. Moreno Jackson. And yes, I added the Mr. deliberately because he is not just as we said, NFTs. He's not just into NFTs. He's into a wide range of activities. If people look at you, Shan, look, and they say you're doing a lot of stuff, I think Moreno is on par, if not more, than
I
doing more
think he
stuff
does
than
more
you.
than I do.
Yeah. So, well, we'll keep this short. I've known Moreno since the university. We've been in the same, I guess, course, electrical engineering, and he went the energy route. But aside from that, he's been very entrepreneurial. He's been part of a lot of initiatives. He has applied and received a lot of grants, exchange programs. So he knows the ins and outs of receiving exchange programs, how to apply for these things, how to find them, and I think that's something that a lot of people might find interesting, which is why I thought it was very uh, good to have him here, and also on how he finds these opportunities. And that's why I came with a theme on how to compound these opportunities, because the more I talk to him about it, it seems every time it gets easier for him. Then every month he's in another country. It's crazy. But without further ado, he's going to tell us all about it by himself. Moreno, welcome to Social Convos.
Yes, good afternoon, Diego and Jean-Luc. It's a great honor to be part of this amazing initiative, and I really look forward to diving in some of the topics that we have on schedule, and of course, anything that may pop up, we can get into that.
So let's start with amazing initiatives. I mean, we just discussed it. I think the reason I know for sure you're definitely into more projects than I am is because of the amount of projects you're involved with at the moment. And some of these projects are together with the U.S. Embassy. Some of these projects are entrepreneurial projects, which are run by yourself and together with friends or business partners. And we do have to ask, like, where did do you remember a specific moment in your life or something specific that made you realize I'm kind of entrepreneurial, not necessarily focusing only on being an entrepreneur and making money, but just going out there and looking for opportunities? When did that start, or how did that start?
Yeah, well, actually that's a very good question. I remember because I was really mapping out my life and really trying to see where the entrepreneurial spirit came from. And it was actually it was I was around 16, and then you had these BlackBerry phones. You know, the one with they had the balls on it. And then what you had is that I was fixing phones. You know, like I was repairing phones, and people would come to me and ask me like, "Could you fix this ball for me?" And then they would bring their own balls, and I would fix it and get a small amount of profit. But then I saw that on eBay, you know, eBay was very hot then. I saw that they were selling like 200 balls for $10. And I was thinking to one time, two time. I said, okay, let's buy it and see how this turns out. So I bought it, and with those 200 balls, I made maybe around 500 US dollars, and I invested like 20 US. And I started to see like, whoa, this okay, this is nice. I like this, and that's when I started doing more with entrepreneurial initiatives. But at that specific time, I didn't have the particular knowledge about entrepreneurship. I was just doing it like, okay, I'm investing X amount, I'm getting out of it X amount, Y amount. But after maybe I think 5 years when I was at the university, I started to getting more into the details, like the theory behind entrepreneurship, and from there on, it just went skywards with that.
When you speak of not having the knowledge of entrepreneurship, what would you define as being, you know, knowledgeable
Yeah,
enough around
yeah.
entrepreneurship? What would be one or two key factors for you that defines you or defines someone doing something entrepreneurial?
Yeah, so well, it's not all about the money, because when you're talking about entrepreneurship, you need to think long term. So maybe if you are going into a business and you think, okay, first month you didn't make profit, next month you don't make profit, and you just stop, you're losing sight of the bigger picture. So with that knowledge, I was able to know that, okay, I have to make a forecast for a year and then break down those costs into one, like your definition of how much is your cost per product, and then focus on that, not just, okay, I'm investing $100 this month, so at the end of the month I need to have 200 US dollars. So I think that that was very important in terms of entrepreneurship, and also gaining the knowledge with the lean startup, because there was a particular time where I thought, okay, I need to have $10,000 to start a business, and then I'm going to take 5 employees, rent a office space, but it can limit you because you are always able to start with what you have, and what you have is, most of the time, you have knowledge, you have friends, you have family, you have internet. So you don't need all of those big things that you see maybe on YouTube. You see those Google companies having a lot of amazing resources, and you think, okay, I want to have that also. No, just start, and along the way you can always be expanding your business and your business concept.
I really want to quickly jump into that because, from a traditional perspective, especially in Suriname, like the dream is always to have this big company with a lot of employees. It's kind of the golden standard. And now you talk about having a lean company, don't making costs that you don't necessarily need. Do you feel like we in Suriname are more ready now to move towards lean companies than we were like maybe 10, 20 years ago? And how would you advise somebody to start out with this? What is I think maybe, or to ask you, the biggest misconception about having a lean company instead of having a company where you have as many employees as possible?
Yeah, so to answer the first part, yes, I think I believe that we are very much ready here in Suriname to have more lean companies, and that's just basically based on the fact that we have more information at our fingertips. So we are able to connect with people from Belize, people from Australia, and see how they are doing it there, and then implement those strategies, those concepts into our business. So in my few, the world is not divided into the countries because that's just the political system. But the world is a playground. Just I can go anywhere, you can go anywhere. So everyone in the world is like my brothers, my sister. So I don't see specific um, like parts of the world in terms of countries. And then to answer the second part, the misconception of having a lean company, people are, you know, you're always starting with the end in mind. So you're thinking like, okay, I want to have this big company, and another thing that really is one of the factors that people are thinking that okay, a lean company doesn't make money because if you're just in a basement, it looks like you're struggling and you're not actually making money. But the goal is not to let it look like you're making money. You have to make the money, and then the money has to work for you. So I think that that's very important. But it's a mindset. So when people would receive their first paycheck, maybe $10,000, they would just quickly upgrade, like get a new car, get a new office space, upgrade anything that's becoming actually a liability instead of an asset, and that helps them make more money. And I know that it's very difficult because once the money starts coming in, you think, okay, I can upgrade my lifestyle. I don't want to ride a bike anymore. But you just have to find that consistent way that the money works for you so that you can work with your profits, and then the money doesn't decrease. So that's the way that I look at it.
I want to bring up a quick comparison between, I guess you usually have these two extremes, right? You have the academic route, and then you have the like the hustle culture, the
Yeah.
entrepreneur buying things and selling them, flipping them, buying stuff from eBay, and as you said, making 10 times, 50 times a return on that investment. And I've known you for a while, and you've actually excelled in academics as well. You've done, after the undergrad, you've done other international programs as well. So, where do you stand in that hot debate between, academics versus the hands-on hustle culture, entrepreneurial culture? Because you have seen the best of both actually, and are actually combining them.
Yeah, so I would say that I would lean more towards the academic culture in terms of entrepreneurial, because I really like to do research on before starting a company or investing in a business. So okay, sorry, I'm sorry. I just was just reading one of the comments.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah, so
we're chatting, Diego, and I are chatting in the background,
I'm
and we
sorry,
kind
I'm
of
sorry, I'm
disturbed you,
sorry.
but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yes. So yeah, quickly continuing. So I really like to do research on a company and seeing how much you can gain out of it, what's the long-term perspective. But I still have a lot of that hustle mentality, so I could easily flip a buck. But if it's just for a day or a week, I probably wouldn't be doing it. I like to have consistency. I like to have continuity into a business model. I value that more than just earning a quick flip at the moment. But if you would ask me the same question 10 years ago, I would just go for the quick buck.
Okay, because I think like you mentioned, you and Diego met actually at the university. You studied. You're actually. Can we call you an electricity expert or not?
Yes, you have to call me an energy expert, electricity expert. I actually work at a local energy company as a distribution power system engineer. So I do a lot of calculations in terms of distributing the load towards the customers, such as ourselves.
So basically, you're an engineer. And so, how
Yes.
much difference is your being an engineer from being like an engineer online?
Well, it's everything is solving. I don't like to say problems, so that's what I was thinking. But it's just solving problems. So in the engineering world, you have to solve the problem of okay, how can I get the energy in a most efficient way to my customers? And the same thing you do in business, like okay, how can I serve my customers in a most efficient way that is that they are pleased with the service, but also that I'm not losing money because I don't think anyone wants to start a business and then you structurally lose money over each month. That means something in your business model is not actually working. So it's similar. It's just like my days are just when I wake up, it's like okay, let's go solve some problems, and then it can be in business, it can be in engineering world. It's just solving.
How do you balance that out, having, like, as you said, you work for the and local energy company, having that engineering, I'd say, day job, and then combining that with all the other entrepreneurial activities. Do you see it as a supplement, a necessity, or is it just a bonus of having, a fixed income from one side compared to the unknown of doing your entrepreneurial venture?
Yeah, well, that's a question that it's the first time that someone asked me that directly, just like that. But it's for me, it's important to have because I really like the engineering energy world because that's what I studied, and I know that it really creates an impact because as we know. We are becoming more dependent on electricity. If there's a power outage, everything's almost out if unless you have a generator, but also that's power generation. But I really like the part of having my own business because that gives you more flexibility, also in terms of scalability. And I say that as long as I'm able to combine those two, I will be just doing that. And I've heard the debate like, okay, if you would maybe skip your day job or quit your day job and then focus 100% on your business, you could go much bigger, you could reach higher heights. And I'd say that the way I look at life, I say that everything comes at the right time. So when I feel like, okay, this is the time to dive in deeper, like shift my focus 100%, I will do that. But at the particular moment, I'm just enjoying being the having the best of both worlds, just to say it like that. Um, and yeah, so I think that sums up it a bit.
So for most people, it would be the best of both worlds, but you kind of also have a third world, which you've created for yourself. And you are one of the first people that I've actively seen promoting, like people, like especially young entrepreneurs, like, listen, there are so many opportunities, there are so many grants, there are so many opportunities to go abroad. And not just saying like, okay, I'm gonna do this for myself and I'm gonna tell people that I'm doing this for myself, but
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
always actively also been involved, letting others know, like, listen, you can actually apply to this. So when was the first time that you came across one of these programs and that you decided like, hey, I'm gonna take this opportunity to travel abroad?
yeah. Well, this is a good question. So it was in 2012. Um, Before 2012, I had traveled just one time. That was in 2011. I went to Miami with my family. It was the first time I got on a plane. I had so much anxiety, and my mother also. I said to my mother that I don't like this traveling thing. I don't like it. I'm never stepping on a flight again. That was just an emotional expression, I think. Now that I think of it. And then in 2012, we were at the university, me, Diego, a lot of other um, students, and we received the opportunity to travel to the Netherlands to take part at a renewable energy conference. So that would be the first time I would take part or participate at a conference style traveling, and then have a program, not just going on vacation, but have a strict program. So I did that. We ended up third place. We had to do design a solar car with, and I needed to do the electrical part. We had mechanical, we had infrastructure. So we all made a team, and it was a very good experience. So when I went back to Suriname, when I came back, I said, "Oh, I like this. I'm going to actively search for more opportunities." And what I did is, okay, I thought, let me start searching for other organizations here in Suriname that offer training, because I for myself wanted to enter the social world more. So I joined the GCI in 2013. So if you see the timeline, 2013 I joined JCI. 2014 I became a member, and from that point on, I started actively applying for programs. So I started applying for programs by the end of 2013, and I received my first exchange program in 2016. So it was 3 years of getting rejection because I was just writing those applications in enthusiasm. I was writing just how I would talk, I was just writing without a red line, like no particular structure. So I was receiving rejection, or sometimes I wouldn't even finish the application form because it was too much, or they would ask questions where I wouldn't know the answer. So every time I started, I added some more, did some more research, and in 2016 I was accepted to the to take part at the wildlife program, and from there on, from 2016 until 2021, I've I've took part at 23 international exchange programs. So it was a lot of traveling in the last 5 years. Yes.
So to sum it
23.
up,
Okay. Yeah,
so
go
to
ahead.
sum it up, 3 years of rejection, yeah, three to 3.5 years of rejection. You get this one opportunity, and that spiraled the last 5 years into 23. That's an average of 4 exchange programs per year.
Yeah, in 2017 I had seven, so I was seven times like going up, up, up. So that was nice. Yeah, and that's including the COVID 2020 restrictions. So, and because in 2020 I didn't go anywhere, but I took part at least I think 12 virtual programs, because it doesn't stop. You still need to connect with one another. You still need to maintain your network. And actually, maybe I'm getting ahead of things, but in 2020 I sent a lot of persons in my network, a lot of persons abroad. I send them emails asking them how they're coping up with the COVID-19 virus. Just like showing that you still think about them. And Diego knows it. We also did sessions where we invited people from all over the world to share how they were experiencing the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic in their particular neighborhood, their country. And by that, we made sure that it was becoming more, people were talking about it and knowing that, okay, we had people from Italy sharing the, because Italy was one of the first countries where it was really hit hard. And people from Suriname could hear that and say, okay, no, we don't want that here. We need to take more measurements into account and don't take it as it's just some conspiracy theory. It's real. So that's like
Yeah,
one way.
I remember a few of those in March, April of 2020.
Yeah.
But before we get into building and maintaining those relationships, I want to go a bit practical on the finding and applying for these exchange programs. So,
Yeah.
what changed from the 3 years that you had, no filter on, and you just wrote stuff? What changed in the approach or the tactical approach in applying for these programs and to consecutively successfully get accepted or get granted to one of these exchange programs?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So one of the main things that changed is that when I joined JCI was starting to execute projects in our community, and then I could use those projects to fill in my application form, because before that I would just write in those applications for what I wanted to do, like I want to do this, or I have an idea to change my community, but I didn't have any numbers, no impact. So those 3 years of rejection, I worked in the community, like doing training programs, building greenhouses for childcare centers. And what was very important is like documenting. I had a medium having articles about all these initiatives. And because when you have this application, they have to choose from so many persons from the entire world, and they would ask, okay, share some of your work. And before that question, I was always going to leave it open or just put a link to something that was not really connected to me. and it was really one of the question that decides if you come in or not, because they really want to have persons that are already doing something in the community. So those 3 years I worked on that, documented it, had a lot of pictures, um, and then I started using those results to take in, like, to use in my application form. And that was really, um, I think, I believe that that really was a strategic change in a tactical change in the way that I would also write my application forms, because I would now talk more in terms of what will it mean for the community, not what would I gain from it. Because I would say, like, before I would say, I want to learn this, I want to visit the countries, talk to another peers. But I would now talk more in terms of, okay, what's it going to mean for my country, what's it going to mean for the community, what's it going to mean for the target audience, and from there on started to go upwards. Yes.
I quickly want to jump into this because Diego, I don't know if you agree with me, but it sounds a lot like the pedigree entrepreneur versus the non-pedigree entrepreneur, where I think the leverage that you had, Moreno, at the time when you applied, like 2, 3 years later, because of the pedigree that you had, like people saw that you actually had achieved. So I think that's very valuable insight. Jason actually agrees that it's very valuable, and they are in awe in the comments about the 23 exchange programs. You have a fellow
Yeah.
YLI alumni here that's giving you a shout out, and also some is also saying like "Go Moreno." And I think one of the words that sums it up nicely is persistence as well. And also a shout out from Gregory. Glad to say that you are here. And now I'm gonna allow Diego to continue with some more in-depth questions.
Yes.
No, that's really great, and I agree with you on that part, Shanluk, comparing the pedigree and non-pedigree, and maybe not completely, because the pedigree non-pedigree debate is kind of, where your environment, and I'd say Moreno consciously chose to go into a certain environment like the JCI to kind of build that pedigree. So it's not that he had the pedigree, he kind of built it over time slowly. And that kind of compounded. And I'm very fond of the compound effect, especially in investing. And if you look at it from through that lens in opportunities, we've had several conversations before, and Moreno helped me through some applications as well in the past. And I remember he said one thing to me: once you get one rolling, the next one gets easier and easier and easier to apply, because it's the same format. They look at the same things, and you've already filled this form so many times. So it's just copy paste, adjust it, and then tweak it to fit the framework that they've given you.
Yeah.
So what else can you tell us about this compound effect in opportunities, and how that has, aside from just being accepted, played a role in growing your network, growing your opportunities? How has that worked out for you?
Yeah. So one thing that I really value for myself and for others is that I always want to share information with others, because I when I started to do the applications, I needed to do a lot of research. I needed to go on websites. You need to check if Suriname is eligible, because sometimes I would just start with the application, and at the end you will search for Suriname and you see that it's not there, and then you're not eligible. I would email those organizations asking them if they would make an exception, because it's try to still work something out. But most of the time I think it never worked actually worked, but you're just trying it. But what one thing that I really think helped me in that compounding effect is that once I started to share more information with people, or not only around me but like around me and also on social media, when they would see opportunities, they will also share it with me. Like, hey, Moreno, this is something I think you could look into. I have persons that are always sending me stuff, and I would go into it. And if I would get selected, I would really thank them. It's not like you would get selected and you forget, and then it's just valuing those relationships and adding value to each other. Because when I would send something maybe to Diego and he tells me, no, I don't have, maybe I don't have the time to look into it. Next time, I'm still going to send it to him because I know when the time is right, he's going to look into it. And sometimes I can also be a little bit pressing to persons because the things that I've experienced at these conferences, I would love to have everyone experience at least one time such an international conference because it just broadens your view about anything, the world, cultural. Like one time I went to Russia and people were like, "You're going to Russia? No, that's dangerous." And I was like, "No, I'm going to, I'm going to see for myself if it's dangerous." And once I went, it was just and
How
everything that
close were you to Putin?
yeah, Putin was, I think, um, 10 meters in front of me. He was really close. He was really close. It was not long, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but I got to see him. I have a lot of videos with him. So indeed, it was a nice conference in Russia. Yes.
So we have to jump into the travel part. Like you said, you traveled once and you were like, "Yeah, this is not happening for me anymore." Then you got the hang of it. You're like, "Okay, I really want to do this." And then, of course, now you have a lot of experience traveling. Um, what are the things that you, when you look back at what happened with COVID, um, what are the things that you have missed most over the past 1.5 years? First of all, you recently traveled outside of Suriname as well. How much different? Maybe it's good to start off with how much different that was compared to before COVID. But then again, also what you missed most about traveling during that time span that you weren't allowed to or had limited opportunities to travel.
Yeah. So okay, first thing that really was a challenge for me in terms of traveling is doing the PCR test. I just anyone that knows me is that I really I don't like having things in my nose or those kind of things. So that was really a challenge. But then okay, you have to do it because you cannot. I don't want to stay in one place, so I want to explore. And then the first time that I went, that I traveled, that was in May this year. It was really weird just to see the airport full with people wearing masks. And even though I saw it in Suriname, when you're going in the street, you have everyone wearing masks. But once you enter an international airport, then you see people from different countries and everyone wears a mask. It just gives you another some kind of feeling like we're all in this together. So it's not that Suriname has to wear masks or Guyana has to wear mask. No, even if your country is safe, when you come into certain spaces, you need to wear a mask. So that was I really know that when I entered the airport and I saw that everyone coming together, I really maybe for 5 to 10 seconds I was still and just trying to accept like this is real. This is things that we were seeing movies and we're experiencing it now. um, but then again, when you're on a flight, people are sitting beside you, you're having something to eat, people are getting their mouse and nose cap off, you're thinking like, okay, if we have to wear it in the line, why do can we take it off when we're eating? So I had some questions for myself. But of course you're just following the guidelines, the rules. But other than that, it was just the same as in Suriname. When you're going into stores, you have to do the temperature, you have to sanitize, and then you would have to sit, of course, the 1.5 meter apart. But what I saw is that people really had the need to like, like go out. When people would go to the beach, they would go all out. So I think that we as human beings, we really have the need for social interaction, just like we're doing with social confoes at the moment. So I know we have introverted and extroverted persons, but I believe that every human being still has some kind of craving for having interaction with one another, and of course outside of your standard environment also. And so that's the how I experience it. And the thing that I is it the thing that I miss the most? The second part of the question.
Yeah, what was the thing you missed the most when you weren't traveling? What did you miss the most about traveling?
Yeah, well, the most of my travels were indeed international conferences, meeting persons, hearing their stories. And I would come at some conferences all fired up, like I will go to share the initiative that I'm doing in Suriname. And when I would talk most of the time to persons from Latin America or persons from the African continent, I would just stop, because the things that they are doing and the way and the passion that they share their stories is nowhere compared to what the way I tell it. I tell it with enthusiasm, but they just cry when they tell their stories. So when I was doing some of the programs online, I miss that the
The,
emotion behind the stories. Yeah, so that's something that I really miss, like the emotion behind the stories. And also at international conferences, you have a program maybe until 5 p.m., but there's a lot of informal stuff happening from 5 p.m. to 9. We go grab a beer, we go play pool, so that's where you're also building those relationships, this professional relationships, where when I would go to a country, I could easily just text someone, hey, I'm here, and they would take care of everything just based on those informal relationships that we build on these programs.
so you're pretty much a very people person, outgoing, energetic. I'd say extrovert, and you've made it kind of like how do you call this? Yeah, made it into your own going to these conferences. And I think you mentioned something very important there, that after the official sessions, that's where the real relationship building happens. That's where the real stuff happens. Can you think? I'm going to split this in three. First one, what would you say to people like myself who are more on the introvert, asocial side, um, to make use of these opportunities, that after the official program's over, that is where actually the real stuff happens? How would you encourage, or what practical advice would you have for them on integrating that in that whole experience?
Yes. Okay. So the first the way to answer that question in a correct manner for myself is just to um, you have to think if you want it, because that's the first part, because it works for me, and I know it can also work for an introverted asocial person. But if someone doesn't want it, I cannot tell you to do it. So if you say, okay, I want to be more outgoing, that's the first step. So that's just like, okay, we're accepting and we're going to um, put out a strategy to do that. And what you would need to do is just to identify with someone that maybe has similar interests, and start talking to them, and not expect yourself to maybe go from introverted to really extroverted. Because I would, as an extroverted person, I would at this trainings or something like that, I would identify those persons that would also be very to themselves. I would go to them and start a conversation with them. And at the first day, I would see that, hey, they're not really responding, or they would just answer the question and don't add nothing to that. But I would just go on asking and asking and building those relationships. So for an introverted person, it would just give yourself the time But before you would attend such a conference, I would always do is just have my personal goals written down and my professional goals. So my professional goals would be like the business side of it, and the personal goals would be, okay, I want to engage with at least 30% of the participants. So I would go out and start talking to persons. And what one thing that I would always try to do, and a lot of persons that know me know that I think like this, is that I would try to have conversations with more than just one person. So if I would talk to you today, maybe tomorrow I wouldn't come talk to you again because we already built some kind of we kicked it off. So what people really like to do is they would find a group of two to three persons, and then the whole conference they would just be with those three persons, and then you exclude maybe 40 to 50 other amazing individuals that you could also learn a lot from. So I would really have my personal goals written down and then go and attack them. So I would suggest that, but also you don't have to wait for a conference to go engage with person. You could start in your community, like if you would say, okay, next Friday, I'm going to go to Dream Cafe alone. You don't have to go with anyone. You just go. You grab a drink. Someone comes. You start a conversation, and it would be awkward at first, but you would grow into it. If I could just add this part, when I was at the university, and I think Diego knows it, before I joined the GCI, because the GCI really pulled out my extroverted side, I would not communicate with students. I would just have my days where I would go attend
To
the
the
lecture.
library. Yeah, you go to the
Exactly.
library lecture.
Okay, he knows it. He knows it. My real where you could find me was in the library, but not the common space. I had a specific place assigned in a room where they just had 15 seats and you couldn't say anything. It was a special place for persons that didn't want to communicate with anyone else. And then what you needed to do, they had 15 spaces, and then if you wanted to attend, you had to grab a number. Like if you grab number 7, you go to seat 7. So what I did, maybe now it's not that ethical, I took number 8 and I brought it home. So every day I could just go in, because if it was full, you couldn't go in. So I had 8. Everyone know 8 was my space. So I did that for almost 2 years. 2 of the 3 years I did that, and in the last year I started to be more outgoing. So
This
I know where it comes from. So that
this
kind
is
of
an
thing.
interesting story. I think you also tapped into Diego's biggest fear. Talk to as many people as possible during a conference. So, as you're giving Diego advice, I would like some advice as well because I am actually an extrovert. I talk to a lot of people at conferences, but then I don't follow up. I'm really terrible
Mm.
at following up relationships. So how how do you find a way to actually, when you've connected with somebody, how do you make sure that you're able to follow up?
Yeah. So everything is, you have to make it become a habit, and once it becomes a habit, it will be getting more easier. So now it's easier for me, but I'm just going to tell you how I was doing it at first. So I had a file. I had a Google Excel file where I would just write those names from those persons down with their email addresses, and then once a quarter I would send them the same email, but I would send it to them. So that was the first way I started with that. And what I would also do is write behind their name and the email the interest. So once I would see something that would go about energy, I would contact my mentor, like, hey, I read this, I think it would be a good fit for you. And sometimes they would respond, sometimes they wouldn't respond. But at first I really had to put in a lot of effort, and at some point I thought, this is not working. The first 2 years I thought it wasn't working, and afterwards I started to getting more feedback. People were sending me like, hey, I really enjoyed the article you sent me last year. So those kind of things. And with holidays, I would send them, hey, happy holidays. It's those small things that really brighten up a person's day. And I think in terms of follow up, it's not just only asking someone how they're doing. It's just like you could send them some resources. So if I would have a conversation at a conference with someone, I would say, okay, what are your challenges? And they would say, I'm looking for, I want to start something in China. I want to expand my business there. So if I would see something in that particular topic subject, I would send it to um, to them at once. And sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't respond. But for me, it's just adding value. And once you get that part of your network rolling, maintaining your network, it starts to get easier. And you would also receive opportunities for them. So it becomes a two-way street. And also, there's this golden rule: if you connect maybe with 10 persons, maybe you're going to have a real strong bond with maybe three or four, and the other six, you would maybe be seeing sometimes on Facebook, and they would follow you there. But it's not mandatory that everyone that you meet, you need to follow up with them every time. It's just not possible. It's just having that, connecting with a lot of persons, filtering it down, and having those maybe 100, 200 persons that you can still um, become more engaged with. And one of the things, just to to add to that, some of the person that I engaged with at these conferences, I saw at maybe 8 conferences, because they were just like me in their countries. And we would meet up at Russia, we would meet up in Trinidad, we would meet up in Netherlands, the same persons, because some smaller countries are where persons are not applying that much. When they would see the names and the stories, they would easily get selected.
Do you still keep this Google Doc handy by hand or updated, or have you evolved that system into something
I,
more?
yeah, I've evolved it. I'm not updating it that frequently anymore. No, no.
And speaking of follow up on, it was mainly through, an email or just a message, how you're doing, and sending some resources. Is there any particular social media that you prefer over maintaining this relationship? You mentioned Facebook before, but um, you're pretty much active on all social media from what I've seen. So,
Yes.
how do you even manage that?
Yeah. So what I indeed, I'm on a lot of social media platforms. I'm not on TikTok yet. I'm still thinking about it. But I do have a specific audience I'm targeting at these social media platforms. For instance, my LinkedIn is professional. You would just find only my projects there, opportunities. On Instagram, you would find my traveling site, only traveling, and and of course on Facebook, I have more also projects, but also a lot of sharing of information, sharing of projects that are developing, asking for feedback from the community. That's my most engaging platform is Facebook. That's where I really engage with most of my persons, and now I've reached 5,000. So I need to every time someone sends me a friend request and I know them, I need to go to my list and see that, okay, this person is not active, then I swap. I have to take a swap. um, but that's
Do you
where
have your
a
followers
lot of
setting
these
on?
professional.
Do you
Yeah,
have your
so
followers
persons
setting on?
also follow me. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're also
Okay.
following me, but sometimes they want to have you as a friend. So I have to. I'm accepting that. Yes.
Cool. That is a lot, and I think there's a lot of practical advice there for both archetypes of people. Definitely. So I'm looking at time, and we've barely scratched the surface of the topics you've mentioned. So I'm looking at Shanluk right now.
I feel to maybe make it more practical, since we're doing a really practical section at the moment, because it's turning more in a free business consulting session than a social convos, which we don't mind, Moreno, not at all. I don't think the people tuning in minded either. So I think we should use the overrated, underrated to go about these topics that we haven't discussed yet. What do you think? I think we can fit them into overrated, underrated.
Knowing Moreno, there's a lot of to unpack in those.
Yeah, I know, but like do it overrated, underrated, and then let him elaborate. I
All
think
right, all right,
that's a great way to go.
all right. Let's do this. Three each. You ready for this, Moreno?
I'm just going to follow because I'm not. I know,
So
but I have to
quickly
just
about it.
yeah,
Overrated, underrated.
yeah,
We
yeah.
give you a topic, and you tell us whether or not it's overrated or underrated. And of course, because we actually do want to know the backstory behind it, we'll let you
Yeah,
elaborate on why you said
sure.
it was
Yeah.
overrated, underrated, or properly rated.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna start off easy and then build it up. I think let's alternate for this one because I need to think the other ones through a bit. But the easy one, I asked this to Ramiro as well a few weeks ago, and because you both of you guys travel a lot and you both have a Surinamese passport, so I gotta ask: a Surinamese passport overrated or underrated?
Good question. It's I think it's properly rated. Um, in terms of it giving you the opportunity to visit all countries, you do have some restrictions. Not restrictions like you have to do when you would apply for a visa to enter certain countries. It would be more challenging, but I wouldn't say it's overrated to have a Surinamese passport. No.
Okay, okay. So it wasn't getting hard into Russia.
No. That because that was it was on a governmental level. It was settled, so
Okay,
it
okay.
wasn't that
Because I
challenging.
I held I held the bus down. I held the bus down for I think at least half an hour on the border of Russia when I went to St. Petersburg.
Oh,
Yeah, with my Surinamese passport. So I'm
oh
glad to
no,
hear
I
that you
haven't.
had a better experience.
I haven't encountered any really challenges based on the Surinamese citizenship entering any country. No, no,
Awesome. Okay. So overrated or underrated? NGOs.
underrated, very much underrated, especially in Suriname. Um, so what I did, just to also, I think I have to say this that after I joined the GCI in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, I did a lot of projects, and then I would because I was building my network, I would start getting more opportunities from all over the world, getting some grants, and then they would have these requirements that you cannot apply as an individual. You needed to apply as an NGO. But then the GCI has its how do you say statuta? They have these help me out. They have these rules, and then we couldn't apply for grants maybe mid of the year because at the beginning of the year you have your planning those things. So then I said, okay, together with my partner, I said, hey, let's have our own NGO. So that's how we started Acknow Foundation since 2018, and then now we are 3 years already operating in Suriname in the NGO space. And I think that NGOs really they're really an active part like creating impact in communities. But then one thing that's really challenging for NGO is the alignment, like having alignment because maybe sometimes maybe Acno Foundation would come and donate maybe toys to a childcare center, and next week you have social Confoes coming again, and then you have three other childcare centers that don't have anything. So it's more like we need to find this alignment, having more some kind of someone that's at the top that can more coordinate it better, but it's definitely underrated.
I'm gonna quickly follow up on that. A common misconception, I think, with NGOs and non-covered. It's that they're non-profit and that you can't really, you have to live off of funding, donations, etc. Can you break that myth for us?
Yeah,
Or is
so
it actually?
NGOs are really that. No. NGOs are indeed in that way that you cannot say at the end of the year that okay, I have made $20,000 profit from grants or training that you provide. But once you would get a grant, then you would see maybe sometimes they have, not sometimes, all the time they have in those requirements that okay, you can have 20% for your team to cover administration costs, logistics, anything that needs to go, and you can also have a salary. So you're able to pay yourself for doing community projects, and that's of course based on depending on the donor organization. You have the embassies, you have the United Nations, you have OIS giving out money. And I think that a lot of persons need to realize that even if you have an NGO and you're doing community work, you're also helping those donor organizations reach their goals, because once you are going to submit your final report, they're going to take your impact that you created and they're going to add it to their social portfolio. So they're also paying you. It's not that they're just using you to create impact and then they are using those numbers. So it's just like a win-win situation. Like, okay, you're doing the project, you're able to have a salary, but then you need to submit those final reports so they can measure the impact that they've created with doing that. So instead of they're not hiring employees, they're using you to do those things.
Okay, got it. Okay, next one for me, and we talked about this in the beginning. Shanluk had his NBA Top Shot pack, and that's an NFT. People listening often to us, know about. We're all about NFTs lately, about the development in that space. So for you, Moreno, it's probably gonna be underrated. So I'm going to go specifically Solana.
Yeah, Solana is Solana is very much underrated. I've just bought my first Solana NFT. That was Monday. Today's, yeah, Monday. That's the Flippies art. So I'm just waiting for the distribution. But I think that NFTs are really going to break a lot of barriers in the country, in the world. I'm sorry, because it really gives you a piece of ownership on a digital asset content from someone that you maybe only see in movies, and then you know you just own a piece of those such a person, their creation. So I think that a lot of persons are not really accepting that. I'm really big on Fifi. If you would see, actually my phone, I would like to have maybe a background of myself, but my background is, it has this sign. It's been here for 6 months, and Fifi is one of the NFT platforms that I joined 6 months ago, and it was actually launched 7 months ago. So in the first month, I was on there, starting to buy my first NFTs there, and they have digital comics from Marvel, DC, and wow, wow, the profits, the development, of course, it's immense. It's immense. Yes. If I know now what if I knew then what I know now, I would really go all out on those
Oh,
NFTs.
we all
Yes.
would. We all would.
Yeah. And yesterday I bought my first NBA Top Shot NFT, also my big starter pack. Yes.
Congratulations, congratulations. I'm really excited to hear that. So Diego's still one of my over under questions, but no problem, no problem. I have a couple of backups. So my next overrated underrated would be having a supportive partner.
Underrated. Underrated. I think that having a supportive partner is very important, to help you focus also, because people would ask me a lot of you guys know and the audience know that I have a partner, Priscilla, and we do basically a lot of everything together. In terms of we are the co-founders of our NGO. We like to travel the world together. We work on projects together, and for me, people are asking, like, sometimes they would ask, like, how are you combining that, like having those projects and also having, a partner. And because we are in the same, we have the same interests, most because she does procurement, and don't ask me those things, but most of the things that we do are aligned with each other. It's, of course, we have to make time for, having our special time. But most of the time, we would just talk about projects, having our sharing our vision about how we're going to build our NGO to the next level. Really trying to set a high standard for NGOs here in Suriname, not just having like, hey, we're just trying to bag, so really have a sustainable business model. But just to go quickly back to the statement, having a supportive partner is really um, important, especially if you're um, all busy all the time, and not that you think that, okay, I have to leave my things that I do to go there, and then maybe you have stress and then you cannot focus. So that it's very underrated. I would say have a supportive partner or don't have a partner. So that's what I would say.
So no in betweens.
I would say that. I would say that.
All right. One more for me. Let's end this one on a lighter note then. What would you say bringing in your extrovertedness, your on all social media platforms, social media,
Is it underrated or overrated?
underrated or overrated?
Uh, it's
Big is a big part of
You
your
really
life.
thought this was easier? You really thought this was easier, do you?
yeah. No, it would be more towards underrated because I think that we can get a lot more out of social media that I'm not judging anyone, but I see people get out of it. And last week I had a session with a training that I also provide champions, and I would tell persons that you are in control of what you get onto your timeline in terms of having those persons that like, okay, Chanluk will be sharing social media stuff. He will be sharing positive content. Diego will be sharing tech content. So you have control over that, and you can gain a lot of knowledge. You can connect with persons from different countries. So I think that social media is very much underrated, and we are just at the beginning of this era where anything would be um, s- done to social media, because also if we know that we are our generation, we grew up in in between, but this generation, the younger version, they it's all they know. So it would be very difficult in 30 years for someone to say I don't have a Facebook. It wouldn't be, I don't think, I would think maybe 20% wouldn't have a Facebook. Maybe person that don't have access to internet, because that's still a challenge in many countries. But persons that have access would also be growing up in a social media space. But for me, social media has made such a big impact, and I have to say that it's challenging for me because when I would be anywhere, just in Suriname, in the streets, maybe in a store, people would come up to me, greet me, and I wouldn't know them. Like, I wouldn't know who they are. But the way I am, I would just start hey, hi, how are you doing? Long time I didn't see you. So I would start a conversation, and when I would walk further, I would tell my partner, I don't know who it is. But they are following you, so they have this feeling that they're engaging with you, so they have this feeling like they know you, they're seeing you grow, and most of the time they're also sharing stuff. But it has opened many doors. People are sending messages like, hey, I have this project, do you want to join? And of course, I have to add to that, you have to also filter, because you cannot join everything. So I would, most of the time, not most of the time, sometimes I would refer them, tell them like, hey, this is a nice product, but I think it would be a better fit for my colleague, or a friend of mine, a professional business partner that could join that project. So it has opened a lot of doors for me. Social media, it's very much underrated.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to throw a little bit of a curveball, and to see whether or not something will become overrated as well. But overrated, underrated, top-down management and strategies.
Elaborate. Can you elaborate on that? Because I want to answer the
Decision making,
question.
top-down decision making. That basically every decision, every strategy starts from the top, and then it's provided down. So basically, you have top-down approach and you have bottom-up approach. Bottom-up
Yeah,
approach is called more often
yeah,
grassroots, or like giving a larger group of people control over the direction. And the top-down approach is the more traditional route, which a lot of big organizations use. You have one person who has a vision, and basically everything trickles down from there.
yeah. Well, I would think it's between properly rated and overrated, because I know that if you want to have things done quickly, I think it's difficult to have a bottom up approach, because there will be a lot of discussion. The thing that's important is having someone at the top that has really has the vision, and then can also communicate that to those different layers, and also having those engaging parts, because I see it also in my organization. There is a there's a top down approach, but each one of the layers are communicating with each other. So it's like, okay, the manager would communicate with the superintendents and have their feedback, and those superintendents would communicate with those persons in the field and have their feedback. So it wouldn't be from the top, from the bottom up, but it would be something in between. Because if you would go try to please everyone from the bottom, it's very difficult, because persons are looking at it from a different perspective. So I think that if the intentions from the top are very much good and ethical, everything, then it shouldn't be a problem to have a top-down approach.
So intent would be underrated.
Yeah,
Having a good intent is underrated.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's on there, yeah, underrated. Yes.
Awesome. I think, yeah, I think we
Yeah,
went through a
there's a
few of
lot.
them. Definitely somewhat surface to uncover there, but I think we're going to leave it at that for today. Moreno, first of all, appreciate it for you coming on. I don't know how you manage doing all that and just showing up for all these, talks, trainings, just conversations. But then again, as you said, you love striking up conversations with anybody. So from that perspective, this would be just another conversation for you with having that you would have
Yeah.
with people on the streets, only somewhat longer. So to close this off, Moreno, what can people expect from you in the near future, and how can they connect with you? How can they find you? Apparently, you already have 5,000 Facebook friends. So unless you really, really dope Moreno, uh, then you can
Yeah,
friend them
but
on
I'm going to
Facebook.
play
But what are
around.
the alternatives? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course, first, on LinkedIn, I'm LinkedIn. I'm also very active. So there, people can connect with me. They can also follow me on Instagram, and all my social media channels are just Moreno Jackson. So it's not, you don't have to go find other names. So it's very easy to find me. And in the near future, well, I have some projects. The next month we are starting with a project that we won. Actually, Priscilla won it. Let me give her the credit. She won it, and we are starting with a project called Ending Domestic Violence. So we are doing that project for the coming 10 months, where we will be talking to survivors of domestic violence, going to schools, training boys and girls about how to deal with their emotions, going to make a big media campaign. So that's something that they will be definitely seeing me or other persons in the spotlight for that. We have the Global Entrepreneurship Week coming up in from 8 to 14 November, and we are working with the Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Economic Affairs to organize that week like in top. It's going to be amazing. I can tell you guys that. And well, next month, I look together with Priscilla going to take part at the international experience in India. So we are going there for 8 days. So yeah, that's this year, and of course having my startup huddle sessions each month. We are actually celebrating 1 year startup huddle. Shout out to my team. Samani is also here. She's listening. Shout out to her also for that initiative. And of course, we are doing the FLAIRS program, the Female-led Innovative Rural Startups. So with that, we are having a 2-day Women Entrepreneurship Conference by the end of October. So we're also doing that. And so I think that most of the time by the end of the year, the last 2 months, I really want to just settle down, refuel, and then January start. But I think that this year I have to shift that because there are a lot of things to be done. Yes, but I'm a night owl, so at night, no, my brain just opens up. I go to work, and in the morning, I'm also active because I have coffee. So I'm active all of the time.
So there are two compliments there. First of all, just in the next month, 2 months, you've mentioned 5 projects, which is like, it's already amazing. But secondly, I do have to give you a shout out because you're one of the few guests, and Diego often says is get a warm cup of tea or a warm drink or a warm beverage, and you're one of actually the guests who went out just before we started to get a heated beverage.
Cup,
So
yeah,
I have to
yeah,
give a
yeah.
shout out to that as well. Diego, let's close off the segment. What can people expect from us? When will everything be uploaded?
Yes, so to close this off, everyone in the comments, thank you guys again for tuning in. Appreciate all the comments, appreciate all the love you've been sending to Moreno. And this episode, as usual, will be released on Saturdays. All social convos episodes are released on Saturdays and distributed to all podcasting platforms. So listen to it on your favorite platforms. Again, there's definitely some nuggets in this one. If you missed any previous episodes, check them out on the website or any platform. And with that being said, um, yeah, I think that was it for today. Jean-Luc, if you have anything to add, feel free, and then we can close it off
You
and go
said it
to the
all.
backstage.
Thank you to our guest, Moreno. Thank you once again. Thank you, Diego.
Yes.
Thank you for everybody listening. This has been Social Confos. See you back next Tuesday, same place, same time. Bye bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you guys for having me.